Alright. Could Goku stop a Viltrumite invasion? DBZ versus Invincible. From Long Stakes.
So let's talk about the fictional elephant in the room. On a surface level, Saiyans from Dragon Ball and Viltrumites from the comic Invincible are pretty similar in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah.
They're a powerful alien race with natural abilities that make them superior to most other species in the universe. Using this power, they conquer worlds, and it seems to be something woven into their very nature. Oftentimes, they send one single member of their race to conquer an entire planet that they deem easy to capture, and when they have
I actually wonder how much Invincible was inspired by the whole race of Saiyans from Dragon Ball.
kids with the species of another planet, they almost always take on a mix of both traits while keeping the immense power of their respective kind. Both of them almost went extinct and had their home planet destroyed. So
Yeah.
what if a Viltrumite invasion replaced a Saiyan invasion in Dragon Ball? Would the Z Fighters be strong enough to hold off the massive army of superpowered invaders? Or would they be overwhelmed by the might of the former strongest empire in the universe? Let's find out. For this video, we will be directly replacing Vegeta and Nappa from the Saiyan Saga with the entire Viltrumite invasion force from Invincible.
We're gonna replace these two guys with an entire planet worth of people.
When it was at its hypothetical peak, including some of the strongest Viltrumites like Conquest, Thrag, and Anissa. This means that we are using Goku after his training with King Kai.
Okay, so I never read the comics of either Dragon Ball or Invincible. I just saw the shows. So I think, what was it? With like the Viltrumite history, there used to be like more. It actually used to be double the population, but for some reason they just culled like half of their people because they wanted to eliminate all the weaknesses in the race. So I'm just going to assume it's the strong half that's invading Earth.
Let's cover the conditions of this battle, how strong both sides are, and who I think ultimately would win this fight. As I've only briefly spoken about Viltrumites as an entire race before, and I've talked about Goku a lot, let's begin with the Viltrumite race, how they invade planets, and how strong they are. The Viltrumites were once a race that actually were nearly identical to humans, but with advanced technology, eventually using said technology to develop into the superhuman race we know today, which actually gave them a genetic and cultural superiority complex, which made them wish to conquer all other races across the universe. This eventually led them into a civil war on their planet, in which only the strong Viltrumites eventually...
Bro, that's like a trademark move in the show. It's like the head chop. So many times does Omni-Man just start chopping limbs. Like, what the hell?
survived. Thus began an era in which Viltrumites would send massive armies to invade planets, completely overpowering them without any warning. However, eventually the size of their empire compared to their population made it so invading with full armies became essentially impractical, and thus they began sending single members of their race to conquer planets. This is the mission that Omni-Man fails to do in the first season of Invincible. For this reason, we will be assuming that Viltrumites consider Earth essentially ready for invasion, and thus are sending an entire army to invade it. Now, the exact population or size of the Viltrumite army is not...
So, the confusing part for me when I watched this show for the second time is, so there was like the entirety of the Viltrumite race, and then they just offed half of them. And then they wanted to just go around from planet to planet and just be like, yo, you're part of our empire now. Like, how does that make sense? Like, you're going to chop your race in half, but then you're just going to try to, I don't know, kidnap or adopt other races under you? I mean, because if they're like one of the strongest races in like the universe, the galaxy, or whatever, then it would stand to reason that like the weaker half of the Viltrumites would be stronger than, I don't know, a lot of the other races, I would assume. I'm just guessing. So this is like a in the weeds type of deal, but I don't know. I just thought that was pretty confusing.
Not exactly given to us, especially at its peak. Databooks purposely do not tell us the population of the Viltrumites, but for the most part, given how they remain in their physical prime and that their race is literally all based around being the strongest and weeding out the weak, it's safe to assume that a majority, if not all of their population, could be considered part of the army.
Yeah, there was a line in the show where Omni-Man's talking to his son, and he's like, the older we get, the slower we age. So with that sentence, I was like, okay, that sounds good.
Now, how many Viltrumites are actually in the population? Again, while we aren't actually given an exact number, we are actually shown.
Bro, what's crazy is they all the men got like fucking mustaches for some reason. I don't know why that is, but I just thought it was funny.
Almost the entirety of the Viltrumite population when the Scourge virus wipes out almost every single Viltrumite until less than 100 are alive. During this period, every Viltrumite who dies to the virus is placed into the orbit of their home planet Viltrum until it forms into a massive ring kind of like Saturn. Rough calculations have estimated that this ring has more than 10 quadrillion bodies in it, meaning that the Viltrumite population at its peak was at least this massive.
Dang. A ring of bodies. That's crazy, dude. That's crazy.
This means that any small percentage of the population, whatever amount was considered to be within its army, would still have at least tens of billions of members in its ranks. So, how strong are these?
And if, like, when you say the number quadrillion, like 1 quadrillion, it doesn't sound like anything. Like, oh, it's double, or like a square of a billion or whatever. He's got billion, trillion, then quadrillion. Billions 2, quadrillions 4. But even a billion is kind of unimaginable to like a regular person. So like 1 quadrillion is just exponentially unimaginable.
These Viltrumites. For this video, we'll be giving Viltrumites a strong benefit of the doubt and using some of the more potentially impressive, though substantially more ambiguous feats of the series, and assuming that they apply to the average Viltrumite warrior. Now, the first and most impressive feat to go over is when 3 Viltrumites were able to destroy the planet Viltrum while its core was unstable. In my collab with Mr. Perfect Cell, I've gone over how this feat is oftentimes, in my opinion, over-exaggerated, and a lot of factors went into making the destruction of the planet possible. But, in short, they don't even think they would survive the explosion if their synergy was off, likely meaning the planet's destruction does not scale to their basic AP or durability. Still, if you want to use this, most calcs agree that this is multi-continental in strength, with some putting it actually at planetary level. The other most impressive feat in the series is
okay, so it takes 3 Viltrumites to be planetary, like, levels of destruction.
Even more ambiguous and only happens in the cartoon and not in the comics, with Omni-Man saying he pushed a meteor the size of Texas. Now, how much effort this took, the speed of the meteor, if it was actually the size of Texas, and all other information like that are never really described to us, as we never actually see Nolan do this feat. However, when giving Nolan every single benefit of the doubt, this feat might possibly be moon level in strength. For speed, the best and most cut and dry speed feat in the series is when Alan the alien flies from outside of the solar system to Earth in about 12 minutes, which is about 60,000 times faster than light. Now, many people have argued that these speed feats aren't valid, as when flying at high speeds in Invincible, they actually warp space-time in order to do so, and this doesn't scale to their flight speed. However, even ignoring...
Bro, what about that feat in the show where they're back-to-back, and they're just throwing a baseball, like, back and forth to each other? Like, that's gotta count for something. Like, come on.
The statements that characters are able to react to their own flight speed, the actual section of the Invincible handbook discussing this ability to warp space is written as a hypothesis, and the relationship between flight speed and teleportation is never outright confirmed officially. Aside from their strength, speed, and the ability to fly, one of the most important aspects of a Viltrumite is their stamina, or rather their technical lack thereof. Once a Viltrumite has mastered the ability to control their smart items, they essentially lose the ability to become tired. This is shown just through feats of them traveling continuously for weeks on end without stopping, but also from the Invincible handbook, which just straight up says Viltrumites are essentially inexhaustible when it comes to...
And how many times you see Goku getting tired and shit, like halfway through the fight? All the damn time, dude.
Stamina. With all that explanation aside, let's go over the power of Saiyan Saga Goku, or Viltrumite Saga. Goku's power level in the Saiyan Saga is notoriously mistranslated in the English dub of having a power level of over 9,000, with his real base form having a power level of only over 8,000. At this point in the series, Goku has unlocked the Kaioken, a form which puts massive strain on his body, but can multiply his strength and power level by different levels of multiplication. At this point, briefly allowing him to increase his strength to Kaioken times 4, which would put his power level at 36,000.
Okay, I say 36K instead of 32 for this entire video. Okay, got you, dude. But bro, don't we wait? Even in the show of Invincible, didn't we see Omni-Man tank that gigantic satellite laser thing that like just bored a hole through the earth or whatever? Isn't that kind of comparable to a Kamehameha wave? Or no, not really, not even close. I'm kind of curious. I'm dumb anyways, back to video. Okay. Got you, man.
Like I mentioned before, this puts a massive strain on Goku's body, and after Kaioken times 4, Goku shortly after becomes almost completely unable to fight or move. Thus, for scaling Goku, I will just talk about how strong his base form is and go from there. As a baseline, there are 3 moon-busting feats in Dragon Ball to go over. Roshi destroying the moon, 23rd Budokai Goku stated to be moon level, and Piccolo destroying the moon.
Right.
As a baseline, this puts moon-busting feats of strength somewhere in the power level in the hundreds, as Goku's Kamehameha at the time was 910, Roshi's buff form was somewhere higher than 139, and Piccolo's power level at the time being somewhere between 300 and 400.
Dang. So then you want to go like what to 8K? That's about 10 times, so like 10 moons worth of Goku. I mean, like 1v1, it seems like Goku's got it like hands down, but you're talking about an entire Viltrumite invasion. I don't know about that one, man. That seems like a marathon for Goku, dude.
Either way, with Goku's power level of 8,000, this would put him at a gracious low bowl of being small planetary by the time of the Saiyan Saga. However, taking the statements that having a power level of 10,000 is enough to be a planet buster, and some calcs that actually put Piccolo's feet at large planet, we can argue that Goku at full power is actually closer to Dwarf Star level at this point in the series, while using the full power of Kaioken times 4. As for speed, at this point in the series, Goku is likely several hundred times faster than Light at this point. As Kid Goku with the power,
which is actually hilarious to think about because you never really see like Goku do any like FTL bullshit besides the standard like, you know, teleporting and doing like the lines where he like goes behind people and just like knocks them out or whatever. Like when I was watching that as a little kid, I didn't really think that, like, I didn't put those together like scientifically, like, oh my god, he's FTL, oh Jesus.
Power level of less than 200 has multiple light dodging feats, and we can just multiply his power level upwards from there. Aside from the Kaioken, Goku does not have any of the major hacks abilities he would pick up later in Dragon Ball Z or Super. Of course, he has Flight and can fire different kinds of Ki Blasts, but things like the Solar Flare or Spirit Bomb don't exactly add a brand new dimension to how Goku comes off as a fighter. So, knowing everything, who wins? As an individual, there is no question that Goku by himself is more powerful than any Viltrumite by a pretty solid margin, especially when he cranks it up to higher gears of Kaioken. However, actually hitting them is going to be insanely difficult for Goku, as he's majorly lacking in speed compared to them, even in Kaioken times 4. However, any Viltrumite is hit
he's still slow as fuck
by an attack from Goku, they are likely getting knocked out or seriously damaged. One major argument in the Invincible verse is what I like to call the splat factor, where the notion that when someone is way stronger than you, if you attack them, you take damage instead.
Yeah.
We see this most obviously with Thrag's children, but the problem is
that was a real crazy thing. Like when I saw the first episode of Invincible and at the very end, up until that point, I was like, oh, okay, this kind of falls in line as like the DC comics. You know, there's not really a lot of gore or whatever. And I was like, oh. And then all of a sudden, the end scene happens in the first episode, and I was like, holy shit, this is good. Yeah, that was just out of left field.
Is that there are similar instances where this actually doesn't happen. For example, Omni-Man headbutts Thrag and his head doesn't explode or anything, despite the fact that in the exact same fight, Thrag is literally able to tear Omni-Man's body apart with his bare hands. So it's kind of hard to quantify when it does or doesn't happen in the series.
Again, with the knife hand technique, you know? If this is like the Viltrumite signature move. Chopping shit and spearing shit. And it kind of makes sense when you're just like a regular like dude and I don't know, punches would just like just blast someone, and it's like you wanted your real damage, make the knife hand.
The other major issue that Goku's dealing with here is stamina and numbers. Like I said before, assuming that only 1% of all Viltrumites are invading Earth, this is still likely over 1 billion people for Goku to fight by himself.
Oh, yeah.
While yes, he doesn't necessarily need full power to take a Viltrumite down, even fighting vastly weaker opponents can tire you out, like Roshi thinking he couldn't fight the entire Red Ribbon Army. Plus, for Goku to access his higher levels of power, speed, and strength, he needs to put even more fatigue and strain on his body. So ultimately, Saiyan Saga Goku would not be able to stop a Viltrumite invasion. It's a case where the stats are so lopsided in different directions for both sides, and it seems like in this case, the Viltrumites just have the advantage in where it matters. Think of it this way.
Dang. So Saiyan Saga Goku getting his ass handed to him. But I don't know. I wonder what Saga Goku, like, he would begin to, start spanking the Viltrumites or whatever. I think that's an interesting one.
While Goku can obviously beat, say, Raditz, can he beat 1 billion Raditz who are all also faster than him?
Yeah.
If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I took a little break, so it's refreshing to be back making videos again. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and make sure to tell me why I'm wrong in the comments down below. See ya!
Oh, no, go back.
AAA Studio.
Bro, this was a really nice video, A lot of times when it's like Goku versus Joe Schmo, it's like they always use like the most modern version of Goku and like some overpowered other guy from some upcoming anime or manga. It's like, okay, it's always gonna be Goku, no duh. But I think these conversations are a little bit more interesting, like the eras of Goku, where he's like beatable. I think those are more cool conversations to have. But no, I thought this video was pretty cool, man. Definitely. And yeah, I'm interested to seeing some more stuff for sure, man. And yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, so I'll catch you later. Peace, guys.